I'm gonna record. Okay, we're recording. And that's all good. The chat window's up there. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and kind of get started with a few of those things. So how'd everybody do? You can, I have the chat window open. You can just go ahead and tell me. Any major issues with the first worksheet? Was everybody able to like change it and submit it and everything along those lines? Everything good? Yep, straightforward. Yep. Mostly just review. I know I'm giving you a lot of new stuff, you know, in the lecture. So hopefully the homework is just going to be some kind of review and repetition to kind of get you on the right spots. So the really key thing here is to remember that when we conference one another, I'm going to expect you to just know all this stuff so that we can talk about our phrases, we can talk about our clauses, we can talk about our verb tenses, we can talk about where things are going right and where things could stand a little bit of improvement with this vocabulary under your belt. Good. So let's do this. Let's go over to Brightspace. I'm going to share my screen again, and let's take a look at some fun YouTube videos, shall we? First and foremost, here's my grammar essentials. And I'm going to minimize that, bring that over.
Is that grammar essential?
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's a big loud thing. Hold on. There we go. You were saying, go ahead.
Is this on Brightspace, your PowerPoint?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go to Brightspace right now. Let me show you what's going on. Here is, I was just looking at those. So if we go to Brightspace, there we are. We're in section 3. That's the right section. Content. And let me show you just a couple of things, where to find things. So if we look at the table of contents, that means everything will come up, not just each week. So we'll start with the first one, which is the syllabus. And you can see now here, I have my syllabus explanation. If you were gone the first day, I'm gonna post all of these things as class recording, class Zoom recording, and then the date, so that you'll be able to access them afterwards and see what happened in class for each class. And even if it's the other one, the 8 a.m. section, they're both going to be the same lecture. We're covering the same material in each of those classes. So I'm only going to post the one. So I'm going to post whichever one has less technical difficulties in it. So hopefully that makes sense. But they'll be the same material will be covered. And so, of course, here, class Zoom link Tuesday and Thursday, that's for the live. And boom, there you go. Zoom recorded lecture for August 25th. So I'm gonna, as they become available, I'll put them up on the YouTube channel, and you can just like check this out. You can just go and just watch the lecture. I was late before there was, right? So if you need to review anything, it's all back here, right? Chat screen. Now, let's do this. Back in week 1, it is now August 27th, and you've already done that. I asked you to take a look at Anki, so that's there. The online writing lab is right there, and this is the PowerPoint that you just referred to there, the Grammar Essentials. That's the Grammar Essentials link to, for me, you know, it'll come up in edit mode. You will have a view-only look at it, but it's the same thing, and you can basically just, it'll look like I'm presenting it, like when you get it, but you won't be able to edit or change anything. Unfortunately, I'm good with feedback on this one. I don't need you to change my notes. So we'll just go ahead and go through a little bit of a review of these guys. And this time, you know, you can, all the links that are to the videos, hopefully we can kind of like, you know, look at them together. Like this one should hopefully be, let's see if I can turn that down. That'll kind of work. There we go. Part of speech is interjections. Can everybody hear that?
Do you mind if you turn it up a bit? It's hard to hear.
Good. So everything is going to be like in my ears right now. This is like really loud.
Hey, that's smart. Ouch, that
Great,
hurt.
thank you.
Good?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not fair. Giving a guy a shot down there.
Good stuff. So you get the point. There's interjections. we don't have to really worry about interjections. That's one of the parts of speech that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on. I want you to be kind of aware that that's one of the things that they are available on. So hopefully I can get the volume of the videos and my voice to be at some sort of a similar level. But when people are talking to me right now, it's either really, really soft or really, really loud. So we'll try to have to kind of just do those with your individual computers. You can kind of maybe at another time, you can check the microphone input and make sure that it's not maxing out every time that you say hello. But that'll be under system preferences, and you can go into your microphone and then take a look at your levels there. You do that at a separate time though. We can do this now. So we have our subject, we have our predicate, we have different parts of speech, just different categories of thinking about how we can talk about parts of sentences. So the parts of speech and the subject and predicate are just separate classification systems. So as you guys know, noun's a person, place, or thing, and we'll get to all the funky pronouns in a little bit, but let's add a couple right now, just because we already know he, she, it, they, we. Let's try a couple of the other ones, like hers, his, him, and so forth. Those are the possessive pronouns, right? So those will be included in there. Then we have like that and which we'll get to a little bit later. Let's right now put them under the category of pronouns, even though they're kind of special cases. We can kind of just group those words so when you look at a big old sentence and you can say, well, I can clearly identify the nouns, I can clearly identify the verbs, but then there are these words like that and which are kind of like weird and I don't know what they are. Put them in this pronoun umbrella for now, and we can kind of deal with them. So what we're going to talk about, I'm going to go with a little bit more on to review before we get to some new stuff, but I really want to make sure that you understand that a verb is going to be either action or linking. These are mutually exclusive categories. So if you have an action verb, it's not a linking verb. And if you have a linking verb, it's not an action verb. It can only be one of those two kinds. Adjectives and adverbs are both modifiers. And as soon as these modifiers get into a sentence, they tend to multiply and become modifying phrases, right? Just a group of words. So a group of words can go together and act as a single modifier. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So remember, what's a clause and a phrase? Anyone? Group of words.
The same thing.
Yep, pretty much. Exactly. It's a group of words. All you have to know is that either a clause or a phrase is a group of words. So a verb phrase is just several words acting like one verb. An adjectival phrase is just several words acting like one adjective, one modifier. So you don't have to get more specific than that. But those are kind of important concepts because when I say I have been playing basketball for 20 years, have been playing is a verb phrase. And all of those words, each single one of those words, have been and playing, those three have a substantial effect on the meaning of the verb. It's not just playing. I play basketball every day. Well, in that case, you just have one verb, play, and that's it. But if you have been, or I had, let's see, how about this one? I was playing basketball before I heard the police come, before I heard the police sirens. I was playing basketball before I was interrupted. So now, was playing, both of those words are part of the verb. They're just a verb phrase. They have to go together. They cannot be separated. Let's go on. Today, we're going to cover prepositions. Last time rather, we did a lot of coordinating conjunctions and subordinated conjunctions. If you subordinate something, what do you do with it?
You make it like a incomplete an incomplete clause, right?
Exactly. You took it from an independent clause, something that's independent, stands on its own, and you demoted it. You lowered its status. You subordinated it into now it can no longer stand on its own. We'll take a closer look at those today. And then articles and interjections, you just kind of have to know that those are words that you don't really have to worry about grammatically. The interjections, ouch, hey, that smarts, and the, and apple. Just apple's the important part. Let's move on. Pronouns. Yep. We'll get to those. Okay. Subject of a sentence. We got it. We got it. We got it. Okay. Let's take a look at action verbs and linking verbs. So this one was super cool.
I get my thing in action. To be, to see, to feel, to live.
That's what's happening.
I put my heart in action. To run, to go, to get, to give.
You're what's happening.
That's where I find satisfaction, yeah.
Yeah.
To search, to...
All right, you got everybody come through with the sound there. That was okay?
Yeah, I heard it fine.
Justin? Was that you? I couldn't hear you for a second there. Oh, I
it's
got
all
you on
good.
that.
It's all good.
Okay, it's all good? Okay. So perfect. So yeah, you could hear, everybody could hear the YouTube video, right? Good. So what they're talking about there, those action verbs, it's what's happening. That's just the action verb part of it. It's just this. The linking verb, they're not addressing in this one. So it is kind of nice to have, you know, very, very memorable but simple ideas to hang larger ideas from. They're those umbrella categories I was talking about. So with the linking verb, let's get a little bit more into that. The linking verb is the verb be. So let's conjugate the verb be together. And all you have to do is repeat after me. This should sound familiar. Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. Repeat.
Is, am,
Is,
are.
Is, am, are, was, were, being.
was,
Good. That's it. Is, am, are, was, were. That's really the important part because being and been do look like our verb be. So those are a little easier to figure out that that's what the verb is. But when you see be and then you see is, it's you got to kind of remind yourself there's no letters in common with one another. So is, am, are, was, were are the ones that don't resemble the verb be at all when you conjugated them and use them specifically in a sentence. So as long as you have those two together, you're good. You're in great shape. I wonder if I can move this. I want to get this out. Well, I guess I can't. There we go. Conjugation. So this state of being that the linking verbs exist in, what they do is there's a very, very simple test for checking out whether a verb is regular or irregular. If it's regular, it follows the normal rules. Today, I jump rope. He jumps rope every other day. We jumped rope yesterday. We just add a little ed or an ing or a have jumped. So in that case, we have a verb phrase of 2 words, have jumped. So we have jumped rope in the past, but not today. Have jumped is the whole verb. So anytime that you have a have or a has or a any of those words connected to a verb, that is part of the verb. It's part of the verb phrase. So with our irregular verb list here, I think we can just take a look, and that should refresh your memory. If these were regular verbs, the past right here would just be another ed, and the past participle would be have been, have an ed. So if we took a regular verb like jump instead of this one, it would be jump. Yesterday I jumped. I have jumped in the past, and it would be ed. And then for all you extra credit people out there over here, if you want to include the gerund, it would be the ing form. I have been jumping for quite a while, that sort of thing. But since we don't just add those things on here, some of them are pretty close. Like look at cut. Yesterday I cutted, I have been cutted. I am cutting. Well, okay, at least the gerund form, ing, is normal, but these other ones, you just keep it the same. And yesterday I cut. Yesterday I have cut with scissors before, but not today. So that will, the long list is not one that I expect you to memorize or anything along those lines, but once you kind of take a look at it, if you need to refer back to this for any questions, this is a reference list and you can always find it here. So now let's go on to this one. I added this one yesterday. So examples of linking verbs that are not the verb be are these ones. Now, you can smell something as an action verb, right? I smelled the apple pie. Smelled delicious. That's an action. I was actively doing something. But if you smell and then we connect it to a state of being, like roses, if you say that something smells like roses, or yeah, that's actually, put that back. That's how about just good? A state of being like good. It smells good. Good is not a thing that is anything other than a state of being. You can't act that one out. So what that does is modify the noun. What you're doing is describing it. So if you can replace that one with the verb be and not keep the, let's do this. I wanna get this. If you can basically replace any of these words in that sentence with the verb be, and it still makes some sense in the English language. It doesn't have to mean exactly the same thing, but it should appear, it should be at least on the same page. Then you have no longer have the action verb version of that word. You have the linking verb. So with that one, you are good. It is good. It smells good. That works. So can you smell the roses? Now let's replace that one in that sentence. Can you smell the roses? Replace smell with be in that roses. Can you be the roses? Okay, now we have something that doesn't make any sense at all. That's not even remotely the same thing. So that means, can you smell the roses? Smell is an action verb in that one. So that's kind of, it's going to become a little more important that you make that distinction later for something that we're not going to talk about today, but you got to know this one cold. So you can say anything that makes sense with is, am, are, was, were, being, and been from all of these. I feel leery. I feel suspicious. You look suspicious. All these things. Well, I felt the heat of the stinging of the hot iron on my arm. I felt the heat on, and then let's try this one. I felt the heat of the hot iron. I was the heat of the hot iron. Doesn't make any sense, right? Totally distinct from I feel suspicious. I am suspicious. That makes sense. So that's the test we run. And these are your most common ones. There are plenty more. Some words just kind of act like that. But if you take a quick look at this list, you kind of get the idea. You can turn green, or you can turn sad. One is an action verb, one is a linking verb.
So these are
I'm sorry.
adjectives?
No,
These
these are
adjectives
linking.
then? Or linking
These are linking verbs.
verbs.
Yep.
They're not, it won't be like an adjective or a modifier.
Nope. What they're going to do is connect the modifier. So let's take it like this, because I think it's easier to see if you look at it on paper. So if I'll write the examples out. This is kind of small right now because I'm typing in it. Is that okay? Can everybody still see this? If I type this out?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, so if we take this one, right, this sentence that I just wrote here, Now, okay, let's identify them. What is the subject? Right? Now, in this part right here, we're going to probably have our verb, and we have kind of this other thing over here. So what you're looking for is the thing that describes I, the state of being that I is tired. So what is it if you say another version of this is, let's just make it simpler, like that. So in this 3-word sentence right here, we have a subject, I, we have a verb, am, and we have what is a modifier. The modifier at the end, tired, is modifying the I. But is this a modifier? No. This is what is linking the subject to a modifier. So when you have other linking verbs, other than be, this is an is, am, are, was, were. So it's one of the be verbs. This one is acting the same way because you could actually just replace it with one of the be verbs, is, am, are, was, were, and it would still make sense. And that means that this is the modifier because that is what is connected to the subject. What is the descriptor of the subject? Tired. Am. Am is just linking the state of being to the subject. Now, I didn't see it come up because we're on the screen share there, but who asked the question? Could you just tell me verbally?
Oh, that was Eli.
Eli, thanks. Does that make more sense, Eli?
It does, yes.
Okay, because it's really, really obvious when you have the action verb like it's an action and it's not a modifier. But when you get into these things like you are green, you can definitely say here, okay, that's clearly not modifying the thing. That's the modifier. So how about if we take this one and say, now this verb look, which normally would be an action, right? Normally we would think of look as I am looking at something. That's an action, just like jumping is an action. But in this sentence, what it's doing is you can't look. You're not looking at green, you are green. So in that case, that's a state of being. And so this one is looking, look is here acting like a linking verb. Now what you have here, we don't have to worry about whether this is a modifier of the adjective variety or the adverb variety. All we need to know is that it is a modifier, and we have to also identify what it is modifying. It's modifying this. It's not giving you a better idea of this verb. It's giving you a better idea of the subject. But you can get a better idea of a verb. Like, for example, I'm just going to write down. Now, what does quickly modify? Does it modify she? Does it modify ran? It answers, how did she run? She ran quickly. It modifies that one. So as long as you get what the modifier is pointing to, it doesn't really matter what you call it. That is kind of for English majors in a different line of work than you guys to worry about. It just doesn't matter that much. I'm going to leave that there as an explanation.
So,
Does that make sense? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a difference? Verbs and modifiers are different, or are they the same thing?
Completely different. I'm going to go
Okay.
back. Let me go back and to a previous screen here as soon as I press italics and end. Okay, this is going to be there. Let's go back up to, here we go. So in this one, the parts of speech, we have our 7 or really 8 main parts of speech. Nouns, sorry, different things happen when you're in different modes. We have our nouns, number 1, our pronouns, number 2, our verbs, number 3, Numbers 4 and 5 are the adjectives and adverbs. Those are the modifiers. That's what I'm talking about there. They're just completely different. Verbs and nouns, numbers 1 and 3 are different. 4 and 5 are two different things, but they're kind of like, we can kind of group them together. So we don't have to separate adjectives and adverbs out from each other, but we do need to know that both of these modifiers are not nouns, they are not conjunctions, and they aren't these guys right here. Whoops, there we go. 4 and 5. These guys right here, they just aren't the other things on this list. They are their own categories. They aren't articles, they aren't interjections, they are modifiers. That make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. And there's our verb, standing all by itself. Two kinds of verbs, action and linking. Yep. So I know, yeah, it's a lot. It's kind of a lot to keep all of the categories in mind at the same time if they're all kind of thrown at you like this. So a little more practice, I'm sure it won't be any problem. And please go ahead and verbally just verbally say something, ask a question at any time as well, because I can't see the chat and I can't see your reactions right now when we're on screen share.
So a linking verb is always followed by a modifier, and then like an action verb could just stand alone.
Well, let's take a look. Can you think of, let's try, you can see that, right? There's a linking verb right there, right? So typically, there's usually an exception to a rule as soon as you kind of think about it. So it's kind of better to just understand what they do. This simply means I exist. That's it. It doesn't mean anything else, right? But if you make it a little spicier there, now you're linking it to a state of being. And so it depends on the function of the sentence. So actually you could argue philosophically that the sentence I am, which says I exist, you could also say same meaning, right? I exist. That kind of sounds, I think a case could be argued right now for I am, period, is an action verb, right? So with verbs and nouns, especially verbs and nouns, keep this in mind. They are going to change their parts of speech depending on their usage, just verbs and nouns typically. So what you could take as a noun in one sentence is going to be a verb in another. Like let's say, I mean, I've been using jump over and over again. You look jumpy today. I changed jumpy and it's no longer the verb in the sentence. Look is jumpy. Sorry, look is the verb. Jumpy is now modifying how the person, the subject, feels. So think about these ones as functionality. What function is it serving? Is it serving as an action, like I jump rope? Or is it serving as linking a state of being, linking the subject, the noun, the main noun of the sentence with a state of being? And that's kind of how you have to do it. The state of being that it links it to, that's the modifier. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Go ahead.
I have a question. When you have, it's like I am running.
Yes.
You have a linking verb and then an action verb. Is that correct?
Exactly. So put those two together, and what do we call groups of words that act as one unit?
A
Clause?
Verb or, yep, a clause or a phrase. Exactly, you're the one. So in this case, I'm just going to tell you, yeah, that is a verb phrase. When you have, so for example, here's some phrases for you. Am running, right? That's one verb. You cannot keep the same meaning of the sentence by taking that out. It's not just that it adds a little more detail or whatever, it conveys essential information. Am running is different than I run. I run means you do it regularly, like every day or every week or every third day or something like that. Am running means right now. That's a totally different meaning. So am running, 2 words, is one verb phrase, and you have to look at them together. So in that case, are you performing an action if you are running?
yes.
Is that an act? Yes, you are. So in that case, all those words together are acting as one action verb unit. So that's an action verb phrase. Exactly. So if the function of the word, the function of the verb is to link this subject to a state of being, and that's all it does, then it's a linking verb. If it performs an action, it doesn't matter how many words it is, or if there's a version of have or have been in there, then you have to include those things as one unit and think about that verb as a verb phrase. So as you start expanding out, you're going to be able to identify more and more parts of the sentence as having functions. So like if I said, you know, this is just a very simple example to just kind of show you, but the subject of a sentence is Jane walked by the seashore. Jane. How about Dick and Jane walked by the seashore? What's the subject? Well, we got two subjects. It's a compound subject. So put the whole thing, Dick and Jane, into one category and say, boom, the whole thing over there is a subject. We don't have to worry about the smaller parts because this whole thing acts as one unit. And it's the same thing with, I have been studying Spanish for 3 years. Have been and studying. Have been studying. 3 words, 1 verb. And it's an action verb.
So when you have a sentence, you need a verb. I mean, you always have a noun or your subject. You need
a sentence
a verb?
is all, yep. A sentence is going to have 3 things for it to be a sentence. This is the definition of a sentence. A subject, which is a noun, always a noun, a verb, and it completes an idea. You have to have a complete idea as well. So you're going to have a noun and a verb. Noun is a subject is a noun. It always is that way. And you have to express something. If you just have a noun and a verb, let's say one noun is cup and the other noun is, one noun is cup, and I'm going to put a verb in there, cup and play. So now I have cup, play. I have a noun and a verb. Do I have a sentence?
No.
Not quite yet. I haven't expressed an idea. That doesn't make any sense, right? So that's just a noun and a verb. So that means it's a sentence fragment or just a mistake, basically, at that point. So we're going to get a little bit more into exactly what you're talking about now, like what makes a complete idea in just a bit. But you can definitely count on a subject is always going to be a noun. They're different. Like, remember, we go back here and we said, here it is. We must talk about words. There's 2 different classification systems that we're talking about here. We have the subject and then the predicate. And I'll give you a little hint. The predicate always has a verb in it. But the subject, what you really want to concentrate on is what is the subject and then what is the verb. Now, the different classification system is 7 parts of speech: noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, interjection, and conjunction. Oh, I got them all this time. That was great. I got them all. Go ahead.
So if it doesn't have an action verb, it needs a linking verb.
Yeah, then you're going to basically, to make it a sentence, you're going to have to put a linking verb in there. Because if it's not performing an action, if it's just being something such as uncomfortable, that's not an action. It's just a state of being, uncomfortable. You can say, Joseph was uncomfortable in class. So now you have was. Now the was is your linking verb, and uncomfortable is going to describe what? Or who, rather?
Joseph.
Joseph, exactly. It doesn't complement was. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The way that run quickly complements run. It describes exactly what that verb is doing, not what the other thing is, not any other part of the sentence. It's more closely related to the verb than it is the person. So you can say Jessica is quick, like as a state of being, right? That's her personality. She's fast. That's just what she is. You can say she runs quickly, and that describes the running part of it, not an essential trait of the human being, right? So just we're trying to kind of parse out where the modifiers are directly modifying most closely something in the sentence. So there's a certain finesse to it, and just basically a certain practice that you're going to get with repetition as we look at a couple of these things. Did that clear things up or make things more confusing?
No, it did. I just wanted to make sure that, so you need either an action verb, a linking verb, or both. That was the main thing.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So once your linking verb changes, once your linking verb it becomes part of a verb phrase, I'm going to say this, and I'm not quite sure about it yet, but I think this is true. I'm pretty sure it's no longer going to be a linking verb. It's going to be part of a verb phrase that is going to be an action verb, because at that point you don't. I don't know. That may not be true. Just look at the function of it. You're going to need some form of verb in that sentence for it to be a sentence at all. If you don't have a noun and a verb that make up a unit that relate to one another, like cup and practice don't relate to one another. They happen to be nouns and verbs, but they have to be like, essentially the way that we connect them is we conjugate the verb. That's why we use the word conjugate, is that we look at the connection between the subject and the verb. So that noun has to be a subject of a sentence, meaning it's connected to the verb and it conveys an actual idea, a complete idea of some sort. And you will have to have one in there. So if you just say, I tired, that's not a sentence. You have to say, I am tired. You need something to connect the noun with a sort of descriptor. Good?
Good, thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Let's go down to, okay, are you ready for one? Oh, this is great. One more crazy thing. There's our examples. You can, I put this in super, I wanted to fit it on the same page so you can kind of see down here that right down there, there's a little link. If you really go far down there, you can grab the linking verb link to explain more about linking verbs. This is a great handout about just what you're talking about. I would definitely suggest taking the time out and reading through these kind of different, these different forms and patterns that linking verbs come in. They're actually really easy once you learn them, but until you get these essential concepts, a couple of, kind of under your belt and with a little bit of practice, it seems a little confusing because, the definition means anything could be a linking verb. So you could have these problems anywhere, right? Not just to be. It's easy to memorize one verb that's a linking verb, but they change forms. They change depending on how you use them. So it's a little tricky at first, but once you get it, I promise you will just get it. So please read this guy right here for in between class. And that's right here on common examples of linking verbs. And I left the link right down there if you see it. We have our conjunctions. When you coordinate with friends, you talk about what? Getting together. When you subordinate, you make something less important than it used to be. You give it a demotion. It's sub, it's under. So let's take a look at this guy, for example. You know what? I'm gonna come back to that. Let's go with this one. We're gonna watch conjunction junction now.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Hooking up words and phrases and clauses.
Conjunction, junction, how's that function?
I got 3 favorite cars that get most of my job done.
Conjunction, junction, what's their function?
I got and, but, and or, they'll get you pretty far. And, that's an additive, like this and that. But, that's sort of the opposite, not this, but that. And then there's or, O-R, when you have a choice like this or that. And, but, and or, get you pretty far.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Hooking up 2 boxcars and making them run right. Milk and honey, bread and butter, peas and rice.
Hey, that's nice.
Dirty but happy, digging and scratching, losing your shoe and a button or 2. He's poor but honest, sad but true. Boo-hoo!
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Hooking up 2 cars to 1 when you say something like this. Choice, either now or later, or no choice. Neither now nor ever.
Hey, that's clever.
Eat this or that, grow thin or fat. Never mind, I wouldn't do that, I'm fat enough now.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Hooking up phrases and clauses that balance like out of the frying pan and into the fire. He cut loose the sandbags, but the balloon wouldn't go any higher. Let's go up to the mountains or down to the seas. You should always say thank you or at least say please.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Hooking up words and phrases and clauses in complex sentences like, in the mornings when I'm usually wide awake, I love to take a walk through the gardens and down by the lake, where I often see a duck and a drake. And I wonder as I walk by just what they'd say if they could speak. Although I know that's an absurd thought.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Hooking up cars and making them function.
Conjunction, junction, how's that function?
I like tying up words and phrases and clauses.
Conjunction, junction, watch that function.
I'm gonna get you there if you're very careful.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
I'm going to get you there if you're very careful.
So with that one, you still with me? Conjunction, junction. All right, coordinating conjunction handout. So that is coordinating. It's just these ones. It was just the fan ya boss, fanboys, right? Oops, that didn't work, Tyler. Uh-oh, dependent clauses. Prepositions. Nope. Come on now. There we go. I was going the wrong way. There we go. So coordinate conjunction page for any of these other ones, I want you to use this as a resource if we need a little bit more there. But basically you can put things together with a coordinating conjunction. So the American flag is red, white, and blue. And like in addition to that, that function of just putting things together, would you like the chicken or the fish? Or you can also put together independent clauses with that. When we get down to the how to use commas and run-on sentences and independent clauses, connecting them to make compound sentences, that's where all of this stuff is going to be absolutely essential that you have this vocabulary down. And let me ask you guys, are you ready for one more? Last one of the day? You mean a verbal yes? Absolutely. All right, here we go. Check this out. Here it is. It's the preposition. We got independent, we got dependent. Yep. Independent, you don't need nothing. Dependent, you need something else. The coordinating conjunction, that's also if you need to subordinating conjunction. Take a look at this guy. Please take a look at this guy if you need any review on a conjunction that makes something less. Remember how we had let's say a complete sentence or independent clause, as they're called, is a noun connected to a verb that expresses a complete thought. Well, if you have a noun and a verb like this one, here's our example from yesterday. I went to the store yesterday. I went, noun, verb, expresses a complete thought. Great. Sentence. Add a subordinating conjunction like although, and you have although I went to the store yesterday. You eliminated the complete thought out of that whole thing. So therefore this becomes a dependent clause because it depends on some other idea that's not in there. It can't stand on its own. So it either needs to be incorporated into part of another sentence, such as although I went to the store yesterday, comma, I am still out of cookies. Period. Now that depends, although I went to the store, on the rest of that other independent clause that follows it. So that's what we mean by subordinating conjunctions and independent and dependent clauses. And that brings us to prepositions, words of orientation. This is going to be in our worksheet for this evening. So here's some new material, prepositions. Here is the main thing here on prepositions. So as I said before, no, let's not do that. Damn it. There we go. There we go. Preposition, words of orientation. As I said before, there are many words that change their part of speech, whether it's a noun or a verb, depending on its usage. Prepositions are going to 90% of the time stay the same. So they don't never change, but you can say with some regularity something, once a preposition, always a preposition. Typically they don't. So take scare, right? That here it's a verb. You scare me. Scary. The bear is scary. Now it's a modifier. In this case, boy and boyish, you know, it's a noun. Now it's a modifier. Now it's an adjective. That sort of thing. Prepositions aren't going to do that. Here, as I'm losing my train of thought, it's been a little while. So let's take a look at prepositions real fast here on OWL, and let's figure it out. So what do I mean by orientation? It's an easy way of saying what I can't otherwise express, which is there are these words, and if you get a list of them, it'll totally make sense. On, at, and in. You can say something is in or inside another one, or I guess the easiest way to remember those prepositions is if you're learning in an ESL class, or the way that my Spanish teacher would always like, you know, move around the room and say the pencil is arriba, the pencil is abajo, the pencil is al lado. It's above, below, beside. Where is this thing in something in relation to another? All of those words, those orientation words. Below, through. The cow jumped over the moon. Over the bridge and through the woods. Over and through are prepositions. They describe and orient, but they don't actually do the running. They don't actually go there. So you'll also have a verb, which is an action, but this will orient the verb. And you can orient them in space, like all those ones, like how jumped, where? Over the moon. Over is your preposition. Or you can orient them in time. It's still an orientation if you jump over the moon on Monday. All right? And you can say at. Well, at the junction is a place, right? It's where two things meet. But at noon or at 6 p.m. is a time. It's still the same word. It still orients you in space, or it orients you in time. Then there are lots and lots of rules, but you have, if you just basically look at the list of them, and this is probably just the best. I didn't really take all the time to, let's see, I'll do prepositions. What about that? Let's do that right now. List of common prepositions. I knew I was looking for that. I don't know. Common prepositions. Guide to Grammar, English Club. Let's try this guy. Yeah, that'll work. About, above, across, after, by, down, except, for. For is a tricky one because this is for you. Like this letter is for you, or, and then it is, you can also say, for example. Still a preposition. Preposition. I can't think of any exceptions right now. Although there are some, I know they exist. I just can't think of anything, which means they don't come up very often. So here's a nice little list of the most common prepositions. And you can say since and through, and the cow jumped over the moon, since you've been gone, since I've been loving you, throughout space and time, till the end of time. And all of these things are going to be in addition to those verbs. And so, of course, we also have some phrases that act as a preposition. So everything connected to the preposition word, as in, where did the cow jump? Over the moon. Over and the moon go together. So that is called a prepositional phrase. And what we can really, really get down to, and we really, really have to know out of all of this stuff, I am going to include that link right here, is when you find a prepositional phrase, you can be absolutely 100% positively sure that the subject of the sentence is not in that phrase. When the cow jumps over the moon, over the moon cannot be the subject of the sentence. It's the cow. So It's very, very important when you're looking at subject and verb agreement in very complex sentences that have lots of moving parts and introductory phrases and all these different clauses and stuff like that, that you can readily identify your modifying phrases and your prepositional phrases so that you can kind of block them out and say, that's not really the important part. I need to concentrate on the subject and the verb. And that's what's going to be important. So the preposition and all the words that go with the preposition, I can temporarily put out of my mind and maybe even decide whether it's necessary. That makes sense? Look at this. Like an art house film, we're done. And that's that. So I'm going to take it off of screen share. Here we go. Questions, please talk to me. Comments. Please turn on your camera if at all possible. Let me hear your voices. What's going on? Good, follow you. It was all review. I didn't understand any of that. What are we doing? Thank you, Joseph. What do we got? Good.
All good.
Understood everything, Patrick? Yep, okay. Good.
And
Thank
kind of
you.
self-explanatory.
Exactly. This should all be hopefully review that we just don't have to go over again. But the last thing I want to do is have to explain any of this stuff to you, one-on-one when I'm spending one-on-one. I have 50 students that I'm going to do conferencing with. So when I get you up into the conference room and we talk about your essay, then what we can do is take that 20 minutes and really make the most out of your time and really kind of discuss the nuts and bolts of your writing. And so I can just say, okay, let's take a look at your subject over here. We probably need to rework that. And it's just, boom, I got it. I'm right there with you. Absolutely. You're right. I am using too many prepositional phrases. They are kind of getting in the way. Because next we're going to talk about active and passive voice and some other things in the upcoming weeks. And it's just going to kind of continue to grow as this is the basic vocabulary you need to do quick work. Good. So let's talk about your homework for about 5 minutes for next time, and we'll get back to it. So I'm going to go back to share screen, unless anybody has any other questions, anything that you want to mention or can clear up for you right now. Okay. Good stuff. Let's go back to this, and I will show you what we have. Whoops, that's dog training course. That's not for class. I'm trying to teach my pit bull some manners. Let's go. There we go. So if we go back to, there we go. Okay, so down here we had week 2 is now up, which is on Tuesday. So that's how you join class. And then here is grammar worksheet number 2. So all we're going to do there is download this guy. And the links on this page are the rules for all of these things. So what I have done temporarily with this, if you look through here, there's all sorts of weird things over here and there's no spell check. If you have to go up to Word, Preferences, and Spelling and Grammar and Edit and autocorrect and stuff like that, this is where you can turn those things off. So this is honor system here. You could turn these on and then you'll have little red underlined squiggly things of everything that's misspelled and you'll know that you have to pay attention to that. Or you could try to learn from the exercise and then turn it in that way. There's no way I can really check, as it's a Microsoft Word document, that you can't like run this thing through a spell check and start getting a bunch of easy answers. But it simply won't do you any good. And that's basically just as much trouble as actually just going through the thing anyway and just figuring it out. Some of these are hard, most of them are not, but it kind of depends. Like this one, let's take this guy for example. I like this example with the apostrophe, because apostrophes have to do with possession, what belongs to what. So when we say our neighbor's car, does the apostrophe go here? Or does the apostrophe go here?
Well, I'm a little confused by that because you could have two different, it could be multiple neighbors. It could be like the family. So there are 3 neighbors in that house that own this Chrysler. Or it could be, I have one neighbor next door and he owns a Chrysler.
There you go. So if you have it, this is what we start with, our neighbor, John. our neighbor, then we have our neighbor's car. But if our neighbors are the Johnsons, then we have the neighbor's car. So that's why I want you to think about these things so that you can run into all of these various problems. Now, some of them, there's just going to be one. In 3 weeks' time, guess what? That's where it goes. That's just it. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. It goes there because 3 weeks is already has an S at the end. It's plural. So you can't add an apostrophe S unless you want to go 3 weeks this time, which is not going to be very good. Right. So that one isn't very hard. Neither is this one. That's where it goes. That's just where it goes. But if there's any gray area, your level of understanding by thinking through the process and doing exactly what you just did, Eli, is going to really solidify this stuff into your long-term memory banks. So here are the rules for this upcoming section here. Apostrophes are not used for possessive pronouns. I just kind of put out a couple of these little things here. These are two different words. It is and it's. It, this one down here, already possessive, so you don't need to worry about it. Whose book is this? Wait a minute. Let me do it here. This lists all the rules. And I think we're already at the point right now where you can do the two things pretty much on your own for homework and figure them out. And then we'll just kind of come back and talk about any of the ones that you found confusing. But it either apostrophe S or an apostrophe after the S if the word already ends in an S will give you possession. And the second function of it is that it takes the place of omitted letters. So we have these are called, what are they called? Contractions. That's right, contractions. So if you want to say do not, I will point this out though, in very formal writing, especially academic writing, we're not supposed to use contractions. We're supposed to say I am instead of I'm. But we're getting a little more lax on that as things move forward, so don't worry about it. So there's a couple of like pretty kind of crazy stuff. Like, what do you do with multiple Macintosh G4s, right? What do you do is, if it's a digit like 4 or a capital letter, you don't put an apostrophe before the S. If it's a symbol like this, the ampersand symbol, you don't put an apostrophe, but you do put an apostrophe if it's a lowercase letter. That many Q's. I tend to use R's or I tend to mispronounce R's when I'm taking Spanish lessons. I would put lowercase r, apostrophe S. But here, I would not, because it's a big old symbol there. That's a little tricky, but all the rules are here. And I think that should be enough to go on, unless anybody has any specific questions there, because we're going to this thing is about 4 pages. These are words that sound alike. This is pretty self-explanatory. Explanations are near. This is the spelling rule for IE, I before E except after C, or when it sounds like an A, as in neighbor and way, and you have some exceptions here. So do you guys know that this is not how you spell 8? Good. Well, it gets a little trickier with received, doesn't it? Niece. Okay, so let's figure it out. The answers are, these are the rules, and they're already there. So this one we'll talk about, we don't have to go into it right now, but the difference between who and whom, it'll all be there. And then some commonly misplaced stuff here. Check this out. This is a little video.
Do people love compliments with an I or compliments with an E? Let's discuss.
So
let's start with the easy one, compliment with an I.
If Grammarly made a nice little thing for it, I put a link to it. But that shouldn't take you too long. Let's go ahead and save it under a new name and then submit it. And then we'll please come with questions. Some of these I had to look some of these up. Some of them are gonna confuse you a little bit. There's no way that you're gonna know all of them. So let's talk about those ones. So we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about ones rather than going through every single one like this one. we should probably be able to just kind of look it up and then go, okay, yeah. But if there's something you don't understand, that's what I want to spend a significant amount of time on Tuesday. Let me, there we go. Okay, let's reconvene. How's everybody doing? Good with the homework?
Yeah, doing great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great
Some
to see you
some of
guys.
those look like they're gonna actually be tricky.
Yeah, no, I mean, they get in there. And, you know, sometimes I go for over a year before I look at one of these and I was like, oh, I got this down. I did this one 3 times over the last 3 years. I look at it and I go, damn it.
Yeah.
It's rough. Sometimes it's rough. But here's the thing. As you go through them also, your Googling skills are going to improve because you're going to get a little bit better at finding answers quickly, which is really the whole point. In the old days, basically the skill was, do you know where to find the answer to that in your big old book that you have to actually leaf through? So if you can look these things up very, very efficiently, get close enough or learn to articulate your question into a straightforward Google search, you're going to come up with probably a Grammarly or an online writing lab somewhere around in the country, super quick sheet that clears it right up and gives you all the things you need to know, and you'll never get it wrong. I still cannot remember whether how to do master's degree. I look it up every time. Every single time I'm like, is it master's degree as in master apostrophe S or master's apostrophe? And I can't tell you which one it is right now. So, hey, thanks. But I'm very good at looking that one up. I can tell you that. I'm super quick. So I want you guys to have that same skill in looking stuff up on Google. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Email me with any questions. And if anybody has any questions, I'm going to stay on right now. You go ahead and log off. But if anybody has any specific questions, just stay right here and ask me, including, does everybody have good access to Brightspace? You're enrolled in the class without any problems, anything. Just stay here and ask me. Or otherwise, see you on Tuesday. Bye.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks,
actually,
Professor Star.
Thank you.
Thank you.
waiting for everyone to leave.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
I always get
How we doing?
for like Grammarly or whatever. Do you recommend that we use that instead of like whatever is standard on like Microsoft Word?
Well, Microsoft Word is going to catch things that don't fit into a certain pattern and make a suggestion. However, that's not going to have you understand anything.
Yeah.
So what it is it's probably going to let you know that there's a problem. But then again, it doesn't catch it all the time because the Microsoft Word function there is to correct it and it's not an instructional tool, and it was not meant to be instructional. So when you get that one over there, like let's say just for example, I wrote down this thing that happens to be a whatever, and it says, no, it should be which, not that. You can just follow it, right? But that's all it's going to do for you. But then if you want to know, you got to go to the web, do a Google search on that and which.
Yeah.
And then Grammarly will come up and saying, when do you use that? When do you use which? And then you can read through the rules and you can figure out what's going on because you just don't know. So that's the only thing. It's not going to really give you the rules or the know-how, but if you it will help you some of, I would say 80% of the grammatical problems that you have, maybe 70%. It'll help you catch them, but it's just not up to the level yet where it's going to catch all of them. It just doesn't have the language skills yet to really rely on it.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Presley. Take it easy.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. How's it going, Garrett?
How you doing, Professor? I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my current situation.
Okay.
Not so much about the class material, but I'm actually in the process of moving into my new apartment in La Jolla. And so I've had super spotty Wi-Fi. Super spotty Wi-Fi. So I'm actually at a cafe right now. So I just wanted to keep you updated on that so that if I'm not responding or unable to do certain things, that's why.
No problem.
And then I kind of wanted to just talk about the fact that I'm working 40 hours a week.
Okay.
So I was just curious if the attendance to the actual Zoom class is mandatory or if I can just catch up and watch the recorded versions after.
So first of all, yes. And second of all, yes. So yes, they're mandatory, but you can always catch them up. I'm going to make every single one of them available
Okay.
So don't worry about it. So
Okay.
like if your work schedule is really interfering, I'm going to work with you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to give it an actual free licenses and don't try to make it. It's just
Right,
as good
right.
because it's not. So that I would much prefer you to have here, but absolutely, if you can't make it, I am not going to penalize you for it at all, but I'll just expect you to kind of watch and then kind of fast forward through a couple of those introductory remarks and get to the course content. But everyone will be available.
Okay, awesome.
Yep, I'll post them as soon as they're done, basically on that date, on that week. It'll just say Zoom recording.
Great. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Awesome.
No problem. Well, good luck with the move. I hope it works out for you.
Thank you.
There's worse places to be stuck without Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, that's a good place to get stranded.
Let me show you my view right now.
Get out of town. That's great, man.
Yeah, it's pretty wicked.
Pretty good stuff. Cool.
Definitely.
Cool.
Well, thank you again, Professor.
Right. My pleasure. Looking forward
have
to
a
it.
good
If you have any specific questions, any specific difficulties, shoot me an email. We'll get back and forth as soon as we can.
Absolutely. Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Right on. Bye-bye. Brady, are you there? Brady, are you there?